8:38 here, Big 550, KTRS. David Stokes is with us. He's the Show Me Institute policy analyst, and he's our friend. I say that publicly. Good morning, David Stokes.
Good morning, McGraw. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, David.
You want to rehash the Department of Justice Ferguson report one more time, or at least expand it, or point out things that were overlooked when we first looked at it.
Well, I'm going to probably repeat some points you've made, but I think they're points worth repeating, and perhaps it'll be sort of the worst defense of the city of Ferguson out there.
Okay.
Because this really isn't a defense, and they've got to deal with their issues as they are. You know,
Right.
They've let a few city officials go.
Right.
They've let a few city employees go, and good for them. Reading through here, and then you see like Ferguson's getting 15% of its money from citations, and I think that's the exact number.
That's
from
what they
the
want.
report.
That's where they want it to be.
Now, but it's not. The point is, as bad as it may be there, it's just as bad in so many other places in Missouri. With the way that's the frustrating thing from the report, is that somehow, let's be clear, Ferguson is not an island here where there's big problems in Ferguson. There are problems in Ferguson. There are problems in cities throughout this state, and not just North St. Louis County. There are cities that have been doing this for years, this ticket citation abuse. It's called the Max Creek Law. Max Creek is not in St. Louis County. It's out in near Lake of the Ozarks.
Well, first of all, you should be brought up on plagiarism charges, because that's the exact same thing I tried to tell Bill O'Reilly the other day. But I said it this way. As bad as Ferguson is, in which we can all agree it's warts and all, and the report, you can look at it any way you want, but clearly there are some major issues in Ferguson. But you could argue that Ferguson is the best run city in North County. As bad as it is, right? When Pine Lawn's getting 50% of their revenues from tickets, what does that say? And then I had people reach out to me and say, great, so they're going to curtail the tickets. All that means is now they're going to charge us more money for the wrong color paint on the house, or my grass isn't cut to the right height. So they're going to start dinging them for that type of stuff.
Well, they are these other cities, the Pine Lawns and many others, and not cities. I mean, this is going to affect cities outside of North County too. I mean, we remember St. George was a terrible abuser of this in South County until they disincorporated. But that's where it's important, is that when you stop being able to stick it to outsiders to support your city that probably shouldn't exist,
right,
and you start sticking it to your own residents, well, the residents have the disincorporation option that they can do rather easily if they want to, and you can make your city go away. You just put it on, get some signatures, put it on the ballot. It requires a 60% supermajority. I'd like to see that supermajority lowered a bit. I've
never understood that supermajority thing, but anyway.
Well, there is a lot of things that require it. I think 60% is too high, but I can hear your listeners tuning out.
That's all right. I can hear them tuning out all the time. Don't worry about
it. But when they start sticking it to their own residents via, and maybe they don't even do it the wrong way through citation. Maybe they just say, we can't do it with tickets anymore. We have to double your property taxes.
Right.
We have to triple your property taxes. And then the residents will say, no, let's disincorporate or merge. There's plenty of options out there. It was frustrating a couple years ago to see, and we talked about this on this show several times, the people of Uplands Park try to disincorporate,
right.
And the vote over 50% fell just a little bit short of that supermajority requirement. St. George, it did pass. That is an option. St. Louis County can provide services to the people of St. Louis County in these small municipalities, often better than these small municipalities themselves.
But I think, in a sense, that it's the fox is in charge of the hen house, because the people who are in charge are going to do everything they can to keep themselves in power. So whether it's the vote or the this or the that or whatever, this isn't black or white. This is just power versus non-power. And so the state needs to come in, and as much as Eric Schmidt's bill is nice, it doesn't go anywhere near far enough to solve the massive problem that this thing is.
Well, I think it does effectively address the citation abuse. I mean, you're going to set a limit now of 10% of revenue by citation. And yes, if if cities skirt that through ticket fixing, so it gets recorded another way.
Right.
At least it's going to be reduced, and I would hope that the state auditor's office, the attorney general's office, could keep and the local counties can keep up the pressure to stop these cities from abusing it. And we have to stay on this to make sure that if you want to live in a small city of 1,000 people, that's fine. But in order to do it now, your taxes are going to go up because we've got to put a stop. And I think we're going in the right direction to paying for these cities through abusive policies.
Well, but if you want the city to be a 21st century city, that means you need a 21st century police force. That means they need to be trained, they need to be educated, they need to be paid for. That costs money, and that costs more money than a town of 800 people can actually afford in an economically depressed area. So, you get lesser police in a place where you need more policing and better policing, and you're not going to have the money to do it. And so these people are then going to be, living under this oppression one more time.
Absolutely, and that's where for all sorts of government services, it's important that there are so many options that people realize.
Right.
For policing, especially, there's contracting, there's disincorporation, which simply means that the St. Louis County Police Department would come in and patrol your area with highly trained, highly skilled police officers.
Right.
You disincorporate, the St. Louis County Police will start patrolling your town. Even if you don't want to disincorporate, you can do what Jennings did and disincorporate your own police force and start contracting with the county.
Right, but you know what?
That just takes the citizens being able to all come together and agree
but
on
you know what?
doing
But
that.
they can, how easy is it to start a whisper campaign? Oh, no, you don't want to disincorporate. That means, the white man's going to come in and take all of our power, or was 6 and 1/2 dozen, right? I mean, you can make up any whispering campaign you want to sort of keep your own power structure in place. So, I mean, the state really needs to come in, I think, because clearly there's no leadership in St. Louis County. Steve Stanger's been nowhere on this issue. There's no leadership in the small towns. The state's got to come in and say, look, this is unacceptable way to run a part of the major metropolitan St. Louis area.
I completely agree that the state has to do its all. The auditor's office and the attorney general's office are both investigating city abuses around the state.
Right.
That's terrific. Late Auditor Schweik, and I'm sure the current auditor who takes over will continue that effort. Attorney General Koster deserves a lot of credit for his investigations here. And the legislature is doing what it needs to do. Yes, there's 2 points that have to be done. Citizens need to take control of their own cities.
No question.
To get rid of them in many cases. But as you point out, if you only need 41% of the vote to block disincorporation, that's not that hard to get to if the powers that be want to keep it.
Right.
41%. There's all sorts of terrible political candidates out there who nonetheless managed to get 41% of the vote.
No, you're absolutely right. And complain all you want about the power structure of Ferguson, but when 6% of the people vote and the mayor ran unopposed, don't say that, Ferguson, clearly the population is not part of the infrastructure to help solve the Ferguson problem. But anyway, we could go on forever. When can we read you? When can we see you?
We just have a lot of information on. I did a study many years ago, which I think is still applicable today. Government in Missouri. We've got a lot of other writings on the blog about municipal abuses. I know there's a lot of organizations doing good work on this now, but people can check out what we've written at showmedaily.org, our blog, or showmeinstitute.org, or follow me on Twitter at David C. Stokes.
I also think that Uplands Park story, because right before Ferguson, right before Michael Brown was shot, they had that Uplands Park vote, right? It was a few months before that.
A little longer than that.
But I mean, there's a situation where Uplands Park, and I don't have the numbers, but they have very little population, and they have a whole lot of tickets being written, and a whole lot of warrants out there, and the town itself voted to keep its power structure, which means they voted for this oppressive government where it's keeping you in some type of debtor's prison. And so that goes against everything everyone's saying today, and yet, a year or so ago, Uplands Park decided to keep the power structure they have. That means that the people within their own community can't solve the problem themselves.
Well, that's why we do need to lower the supermajority requirement. I think going from 60% at a minimum to the 4/7 level that bond issues can be passed at is a reduction down to about 57%. I think that would be an important part. But yes, the state has a role, and the one thing we've left out here is the role that the courts can play themselves, the Supreme Court itself, in reining in how these municipal courts operate on their own.
We should also mention that the Municipal League, which is, I guess, an association of these muni courts and everything, they're against Eric Schmidt's bill, by the way.
When let me just put it this, generally speaking, and there are some exceptions to this, but if somebody asks me how I feel about an issue and I don't know the answer, I sometimes think, how does the state of Missouri Municipal League feel about it? And if you tell me how they feel about it, I'll take the opposite view.
But I mean,
I'll generally feel pretty comfortable. I'm in the right.
I understand, but it just goes to show you that there are people who are standing up, right? John Deals put this bill out for years, and it got blocked down in Jefferson City for all sorts of reasons. It's because people in power don't like to give up their power.
And the Missouri Municipal League and in St. Louis County, the St. Louis County Municipal League are both very powerful organizations.
Yeah. All right. David Stokes, have a good week.
Thanks, McGraw. Thanks, Kelly.
8:50. We'll check traffic, weather, and we'll talk to Mike Kelly here in a minute on the Big 5.